So the protracted crisis in Lebanon really emanates from two main shocks. The first is a refugee shock that started in 2011 after the Syrian civil war, and we've had like a major influx of refugees into the country. So there's a major displacement, protracted displacement shock that took place. But also there's on the other level a financial crisis that started in 2019 that saw soaring levels of inflation, the complete decimation of savings, both in terms of banking deposits, but also of other social funds, pension funds, etc., etc. And so poverty levels are soaring high, 82%, and there is no kind of uh, exit or reform options that are being really pursued by the Lebanese political class, which makes this a prolonged, protracted crisis that will likely, lead to many years of suffering. So social protection, in essence, is made up of two main arms. One is the contributory social insurance, which has collapsed in Lebanon as a result of the inflation of the crisis, and the other one is the non-contributory social assistance that is awarded to people, particularly those that are most vulnerable. And this in Lebanon has been the primary source of protection that has been awarded to people after the crisis through programs like the ESSN, which are expansion, which is the Emergency Social Safety Net, which are expansion of the National Poverty Target Program. Now, these programs are limited in terms of how much benefits they can award and how much protection they can afford to people. There's also a lot of informal social assistance networks that are being built up. These informal social assistance programs are obviously exposed to political economy risks, like in a country like Lebanon, where there's fair bit of identitarian politics taking place. So you have, for example, many religiously affiliated organizations working in social assistance provision, political parties working in social assistance provision, which is expanding and sort of resuscitating the system of political and identitarian dependencies that people have, which really makes like a major political breakthrough in Lebanon that can lead to major change in the country possible. For me, I think that the discussions surrounding social protection have really remained in the realm of technical discussions and technical conversations, which is certainly very important. But at the same time, I know that there are multiple papers written about what is social protection reform in Lebanon. In fact, there's a national social protection strategy for Lebanon that really goes into the particular technical and design problems. However, the main bottleneck remains a political one, and we really need to introduce this component within the overall framing of social protection countries in Lebanon, which would then not only fit within the Lebanese context, but would then be generalizable to other contexts that suffer from similar challenges. The project with BASIC on Lebanon that I'm working on is around the issue of the politics of social assistance in specific. The reason why we're focusing on politics is because the problems and the challenges that exist with social assistance in Lebanon are not due to capacity problems like you see in other developing countries, but in essence, they are political choices. And so the primary question that we are seeking through this project is to see what are the political circumstances and arrangements that exist in Lebanon, and how do they dictate the social assistance landscape, both nationally and locally, at the national level, but also at the local level. But not only this, but also how are these social assistance programs then reproducing new political arrangements, both at the local level and the national level. So in a way, we are trying to see how, for example, these informal programs that I was talking about just earlier are sort of changing the social contract in the country, and how they are deviating or disintegrating this national social contract and creating more identitarian social contracts that exist at geographical level or sectarian level or communitarian level. So The main research methods that we're going to be using is obviously desk reviews, which we are running, but also key informant interviews and interviews even with local level actors, with informal social assistance providers, etc., 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 to really get a grasp of what kind of landscape is taking shape. We are going to also be relying on secondary data on vulnerability, secondary data on social assistance provision in the country whenever it's possible, knowing that Lebanon really suffers from data obscurity, and this is certainly going to be a challenge. The ability to run surveys and then get meaningful data is very difficult, because if we run a survey today and then we run the survey 3 months from today, the picture will be completely different due to how the crisis is accelerating and how the collapse is accelerating. The project is providing a very good opportunity at getting a first glance in Lebanon about how the social assistance landscape is being transformed due to the crisis. So we haven't had any kind of analysis of this kind since the crisis happened. So what I'm most excited about is to really get an understanding, a critical evidence-based understanding of how social assistance landscape is in the country is dictating politics, is dictating social outcomes, economic outcomes, and etc. And also, what would this tell us about the future of the